Yo, what's up?
Hey, I didn't
Oh.
know which seat to move to. I was there were a lot of people in there. Hey, how's it going?
It's going well. It's going well. Oh man, I'm excited. I'm super excited to get you in here.
Yeah, I'm also very nervous. So I'll try my best not to stutter too much.
It's okay, me too. You want to join the word game?
Yeah, of course.
All right, I'll hit you with a link real quick. Oh man,
Let's see
I'm
how good my multitasking ability
yeah,
is.
yep. This is like a word game hot one, so you can distract while trying to answer questions.
Jesus. Okay.
Um, I gotta say, I'm a little starstruck right now. I've been following your Twitch channel since like 2015 or something.
That is very humbling, actually. I am, man, because I haven't actually really gained traction until about that time period. So I think you've actually just been there since the beginning,
Hell yeah.
which is it's crazy to think about.
I was obsessed with watching OS streamers back then.
Me too.
like eat, sleep, and breathe OS, and I would just think about it all the time. And like every
Me
single
too.
night before I go to sleep, I would like go through the directory of OS streamers and see if like there was anyone who was like an up and coming player.
Who was your favorites? One of your favorites, actually,
Ooh.
if you have names.
I really enjoyed watching Cinia Pacifica, just because like
Ooh, Cinia.
he had like the exact opposite skill set of me, and it was like everything that I wanted.
I actually kind of agree because at least also in my case as well, because I was namely at the time a hard rock player,
Hmm.
and he was the one who played, all of those dense hidden A maps
Mm.
and like really speedy maps. Like you probably remember this video where he DT'd Mad Machine
Yep, yep,
somehow.
yep.
I
I don't know what
not
is with his hand. It's like a pneumatic
I'm
drill.
I'm I'm not really sure how he did that.
Yeah.
I still don't really know, but
And the single tap Genryu Kaiko doesn't make any goddamn sense.
that's a thing.
Yeah, yeah. He had like
Okay,
90%
well,
ac.
today I learned that he can single tap Genryu Kaiko. Okay, well that's great. Sunya is crazy. I miss him.
Yeah, I think he sold his tablet. He just plays like Apex Legends now. Kind of sad, but you know, he's doing what he prefers. All
Of
right.
course.
Before we get started with any of the questions here, I want to throw the link in chat one more time. If you want to come and hop in the game, give Zilver some more time to think. It would be
Yeah.
appreciated. Whew. Okay. So to get started here, I want to have you walk us through your story as an O's player. So, the logical beginning, how did you find out about the game? When did you start playing, and like were you immediately interested in it, or did it kind of take time?
Right. So I joined around August of 2013. That was when I made my account. And it wasn't too special. It was I had a League phase. I played League of Legends before Osu, and there was this Twitch streamer called Boxbox,
Right.
right? And then he would play Osu in queue times, right? And I remember always being interested in the queue times where he played Osu rather than the League games themselves.
Oh man.
And I had a weeb phase also at the time, so that kind of elevated it a bit more. I was also into Toho. I played that, if you know. These are vertical shoot 'em ups, kind of like bullet hell games, and also had a plethora of Toho songs from there. So it just kind of like escalated from there. And I played it for about 4 months on the side until about like January of 14, which was when I took the game seriously. And really, I've just been playing ever since.
And you must have got pretty good then, because it only took you like a year to start like breaking through the top 100 then, right?
People say that. Yeah, I get that a lot, man. It's so weird to think about because I've had I wouldn't say a very healthy way to begin improving in this game.
Really?
Because, yeah, so I played Nomad, like, the classic, like, 3 months of just playing Nomad, like, songs I like, or
Right.
hard maps and stuff. And this new player habit where it's just like you go to YouTube and you see like the most popular maps at the time and you just try to play it and you get like 50% accuracy on them.
Exactly.
So I was that type of guy for like 6 months ish, right? So it's like the worst way to start playing the game. And what escalated into Hard Rock was, so there was this Twitch streamer called, wait, is this my turn actually? Oh wait, I'm not actually sure which character I am in
Did you hit join game before?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. You should.
Maybe.
You'll probably get like a noise when it's your turn.
I gotcha. Okay. So there was this Twitch streamer called Quantec. He's Canadian. He was one of the OG few streamers.
Yeah.
I remember he uploaded a past video of a map called Cheat Reel. You probably know that, right?
I do.
And it was an AR-10 difficulty, and he got like he was like really close to passing it, and then he failed right at the end.
Oh man.
And me being in the hard map period phase, I was like, hey, this map looks pretty hard. I should probably try it, see what I get. And I had this habit of just like playing a map repeatedly, like 50, 60 times a day. That's why I say it's really weird how I improved fast, because I don't recommend my beginning to anyone. But so fast forward a little bit. So I played so much Cheat Reel to the point where I could not read anything below AR-10 because the top diff was AR-10. So I would spend like the next 2 months just playing custom edits of ranked maps, except with the OD up to 10, right? And I just kind of did that for a month or two, and I was like okay with it. And then around January or February, it was like, okay, wait, I want to get on the leaderboards, but I can only play AR-10. What's a good way to do that? And it's like, oh wait, there's this mod called Hard Rock, which increases the AR to 10. And, you know, it does all that other stuff, like flips the screen or like decreases circle size. It's like whatever, like the worst way to just like start playing a mod, right? And I did that for like a year, pretty much just like a year straight. I just turned Hard Rock on and never turned it off.
That's crazy. So you used it as a crutch, and then like it ended up forcing you to learn the other skills involved?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's crazy because man, there was this huge stigma at the time too, for players who could only read like above AR-10 and stuff. So I felt like I was like breaking the law or whatever. Like it was really bizarre. But yeah, I just played that for a year, and it was about like, of course you know about Tillerino, right? It was this bot that came around like March, April, and of 2014, and it was also when PPV2 came out. So it was less about getting leaderboard rankings and more about you know, getting plays that are actually like high in mechanical skill, or relatively higher in mechanical skill.
Right.
And I just kind of started using that bot. I'm pretty sure a lot of people were in my case, and I think that period of me just like using Tillerino taught me how to play jumps and taught me how to stream better. Because before that, I kind of just did whatever I wanted. I mainly played alternate maps because, you know, a lot of the boss maps at the time were alternate maps. Like, what was it? Scarlet Rose, all the Val alternate stuff, like Talent Shredder with a dance number. Like all these old Wolf videos were mainly of alternate maps. So I thought, okay, this must be peak difficulty, right? And what that did actually was it set my low BPM fundamentals and flow aim pretty good at the start, because, well, alternate maps, I played them like how you do playing long streams. Like there's two types of alternating, which is like, one type is like alting like really hard with your fingers and trying to snap with your aim, which is less streamy, but it gets you better control over your aim. And the other part of it is flow aim and alting very lightly, like you're playing a very slow stream. And I did the latter one, so I think that kind of built my low BPM fundamentals. And I guess a lot of people at my rank range at the time didn't really have those because it was mainly about jumps and stuff.
For sure.
So yeah, so basically that was essentially what I did in 2014. I did just play Hard Rock only for a year, and I ended up that year top, like rank 53, I think. Like in January, I was rank what, like 40,000. I wasn't really trying, so it was that was about the time in 14.
How exactly did you get better at accuracy, though? Because I feel like that's a skill that wouldn't come that naturally as someone who is like playing maps out of their comfort zone.
Yeah, that is true. So what I said about the low BPM fundamentals, playing alternate maps helped, definitely. And so I looked at the top 50 players at the time period, and I'm like, okay, I play Hard Rock. Let's see, is there anyone else in the top 50 who also plays Hard Rock? And I saw people like Delua. I saw people like Azer who were like climbing like ridiculously fast at the time. He was like top 50 when I started. Who else? Wolf. A lot of Japanese players, Gokuri, Mercurius. Like these were the type of people who were really high up there in the top 50, and they played the sort of meta at the time was very high accuracy with Hard Rock because aim wasn't really established back then. So I think just naturally playing these types of maps, like the same maps they played. So at first I got like, 80% accuracy, 85, right?
Right.
But then the more comfortable you get with tapping a BPM and the more comfortable you get with playing a map, you just get slowly, it naturally just like rises up. Right? As long as you don't play something that's incredibly out of your comfort zone, this accuracy should just increase naturally, in my opinion.
I think that's fair, but you've definitely gone past the point of just like having natural progression. Like you've gotten so good at it. I feel like there has to be some like methodology that you use to get better than like everyone else at it.
You mean in terms of accuracy?
Yes.
There are a few guidelines that I can share.
Okay.
I'm sure people know them. They're not like, ooh, like top secret. I don't share these with anyone. Like many people know them, but one is use loud hit sounds and very tactile hit sounds. My next video actually wanted to discuss the concept of weight on Osu when it comes to stuff like hit circles, cursor types, hit sound types, because to put it shortly, there's this phenomenon where I remember Azer was mentioning it in his stream. He accidentally used default skin hit sounds, and he noticed he was able to aim faster than he would playing with his normal hit sounds.
That's really neat.
It's weird, right? And I tried that, and I'm like, wait, that actually works. Like, I can sort of like, and the default skin hit sounds were very soft. Like you wouldn't really be able to, you can't really distinguish them well from the song themselves. So they're not like waiting on your head as much as they do. So it comes at the cost of, increased speed, increased stamina, but at the cost of less control, less accuracy. So if you do want more accuracy, then I would definitely suggest loud hit sounds and very tactile ones. There's the really popular ones, the clicky ones that you saw in, man, I don't know when they started, but I got them from Nico skins, but they're everywhere now. Another tip is use offsets if you need to. If you're hitting late, the error bar, if you're hitting to the right, then use plus local offset. If you're heading to the left, use negative local offset. Third tip is use really big 100s, because I noticed, maybe it's a subconscious thing, but when you have really big 100s, you kind of like want to get rid of them.
I agree.
You're like, wait, I can't see what's on my screen if there's 100. So it just kind of forces me to have good accuracy.
Yeah, I think it was Ruuchi that had like the giant green comedy glasses whenever he would get 100.
Yeah, and I think especially nowadays, it's very common to have like very minimal, like 2 pixel length 100s, which for the meta is actually like it's a pretty good thing because you need to decrease your reaction time as much as possible now, obviously. But I feel like yeah, you just kind of want to get rid of them. What else? Oh yeah, watch your replays and see what you do wrong. And like if there's a section where you're hitting late, then just force yourself to hit faster, for example. Like you don't even have to be on beat. Like you can just like be slightly faster and then it'll adjust to a 300, you know? Other than that, not much else. Cause oh yeah, I guess one more thing is accuracy is people equate accuracy with you know, hearing, right? Like a sense of tapping, a sense of rhythm.
Right.
But I would actually disagree, and I would say that accuracy, not entirely disagree, because of course hearing is a huge part of it, but accuracy in Osu is also very visual. You can sort of eyeball when you need to tap to get a 300 through just experience. You know what I mean?
You're talking about like based on the approach circle, or just based on like feel?
Also, but with hidden, for example, if you play hidden, there's a time where the circle fades. Like the first frame it fades is usually the time. Like when I mean fade, it means like fades completely, like just turns into black.
Right.
So the first frame it fades is usually the time to click the circle and get a 300. It's sort of a subconscious thing that hidden players do, I think. But yeah, don't underestimate visuals and like your eyes as accuracy gauges. That's essentially the main stuff, I think.
Okay. So it's all of the things you mentioned, plus like developing the finger control necessary to actually just like do what you want to do.
Yes. And this comes from fundamentals. And I'm learning this, actually, I've been learning this recently too, because I've been having a pretty bad issue with my streaming finger control. And I've tried, man, I think the last 4 months I've tried focusing on just raw mechanics, which is just hard grinding stamina maps. And what happened was the stamina increased, but because my technique was so inherently flawed, it just became so inconsistent to the point where I was playing worse than what I would normally, you know?
Was that like part of your hyper focus theory, or is it just based on technique as a whole?
That was, yeah. It was due to both. It was definitely due to both. It was, one was hyper focusing on stamina. The other one was not sitting on the basics and making sure you have correct technique. Yeah. There's this how do I say it? Like there was this video by this one YouTuber called Tone, I think, and he would address an issue with players who would get, you know, really low accuracy, but would just hyper focus on aim playing farm maps and stuff, and like they would get like C ranks on their profile, right? And the one thing he suggested to them would be go back to the basics, which would be play like 3-star and 4-star maps and try to raise the accuracy as much as you can slowly. And what that does is just like it kind of like reteaches you how to do the game or how to play the game. And I did a kind of a similar thing to that when I was relearning how to read ARs lower than 10 back in 2015. And yeah, I could probably expand on them, but I think I'm kind of rambling. So if you have like, you know, any specific question that you want me to focus on, yeah, I'd love to.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Don't worry about it at all. But that's fine. We can can push forward. Before we get back to all of like the specifics about OS improvement, let's keep talking about your like OS career. So, when you were improving at OS, was it like I just want to be better at this game, or was it like more of like a competitive thing for you?
So I'm like the least competitive person you'll probably ever meet in this game.
Really?
Yeah. And I just wanted to play good songs, and I just wanted to like, zone the world out and just play like hard maps or like good songs or whatever. Like the times I was competitive in this game were like some of the most miserable months of my life.
Wow.
It was yeah.
So to this day, you still don't really like care about rank or anything like that.
There was definitely a period where I did care, like when I was high up in there.
Right.
But at the moment, not really. No.
That's good. It's a healthy relationship with the game.
Yeah, of course. But regarding competition, it's, how do I say it? I thought I remember in 2014 when I was still a 5-digit, I used to think like, okay, yeah, I'm probably never gonna be good enough to be 4-digit, right?
Right.
And I just kind of got there after a few months, just playing what I normally would. And then, like, why am I saying this? I'm saying this because a lot of people are trying to be very conscious about improving. They're like, yeah, I want to be like top 100, or I want to be like top 50, or whatever they want to do with this game. And they try to chase it very, very directly. And the interesting thing is I've gotten the most success not chasing improvement, like directly.
That's really odd to me.
It just sort of happened when I wasn't doing it. You know?
Can you try to explain that? Because I think you've got a lot of ideas and like how improvement should be done and like the most effective ways to do it. But you still think that. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, you're right, and there has to be some truth to those improvement methods. However, you know how I said about the previous video where your brain needs to sit on stuff?
Yeah.
So sometimes you just need like a distraction, I guess, from just thinking about improving so much, so your brain can actually just like rebuild and think about how to do it better. You know?
That's interesting. I remember I stopped by OMG4's stream one time, and like he was like one of the few players that entertained my like really stupid like Reddit essays about improvement. And like we came to this idea of like overthinking improvement like can be a detriment, you know? Constantly thinking of different ways to go about it. It can slow you down, as counterintuitive as that might seem.
You're right. And I'm a huge overthinker, and
Same.
Yeah, we're like animal beings at the time period. But anyway, so regarding to overthinking about improvements, sometimes making a wrong decision is better than not making a decision at all. And it's very true in terms of this game, in my opinion. Because when you like, I'll give you an example. I used to think that playstyle was everything in this game. Like you had to do what the pros did in terms of like area or keys or sensitivity or whatever, and I would like experiment with that for years. And it would come to a point where I would change my area like daily. So what that ended up doing was it never created a sort of consistent pathway of improvement,
Right.
Like even if there's this mindset of like, oh, I gotta find the perfect settings for the ideal improvement or whatever, right? And the thing about that is, even if you don't find the ideal settings for you, with exposure to what you're currently using, you can figure out the flaws and adjust accordingly. And not only that, I do feel like every playstyle has some sort of weakness and strength to it. There is no like objective best or better playstyle. Like it just in terms of how do I say it? Which weaknesses do you want to adapt to, like the most easiest way for you? Like for example, when it comes to area size, so if you play a really big area, then yeah, you have to move your hand a lot more than you would playing a smaller area. But precision would be a lesser priority for you. But it would be the opposite with smaller areas. It's like, oh, you can move across the screen really quickly and really easily, but it's really hard to be precise on stuff. So it's like, okay, do you want to learn precision or do you want to learn big hand movements? You know, it's like, which weakness do you want to adapt to? Are like, I remember Bubbleman said that at some Twitch chat, which always kind of stuck with me. It's like, which weakness are you more half-assed? Are you the least half-assed to learn about? You know, like something silly like that. But it's true in my opinion.
Yeah, it's like the exact argument applies to like high and low sense. Do you think there's benefit to practicing both?
Lol.
Like exposing yourself to
Yes.
like forcing yourself to use something you're not comfortable with.
Yes.
Okay.
Experimentation is important. It's very important actually, and actually, I want to make a video about that because a lot of people just say like, oh, just like use a setting and never change it ever.
Right.
And I'm like, wait, that just sounds like, that always sounded just so backwards to me. Because how do you know what's better or worse if you've only tried like one way of looking at stuff? You know?
I completely agree, yeah.
And like, how do I say it? Like, when I started playing with a tablet, which was about like 3 months after I got it, I played with literally the smallest possible area you could put on the driver at the time, because I played with like 2500 DPI on 2.5x sensitivity because I somehow found that comfortable. Don't ask. But I just kind of did that for like 3 months. And I remember taking like a week break because school and stuff. And I was like, wait a second, this is annoying. Like, I hate having 0 precision. Let's just like increase my area. Like, I don't give a crap what happens. Like, I'm just going to increase my area and do whatever I want. And like, you know, lo and behold, I got a massive skill boost just from doing that.
Huh.
Now imagine if I just stayed with that 20 millimeter area. Like, probably wouldn't have gone as further as I'd like to be, you know?
So do you think that the skill boost came from experimentation or it came from just like being a more practical area?
Both.
Okay.
Definitely.
Okay.
Because like, yeah, there is a practical area. Like, you're probably not gonna be able to hit very small circles if you play on like a 1 millimeter area. And I'm using extremes deliberately because there's this very at least I noticed, and it's like, there's this like sort of way of thinking where it's like, oh, just use whatever you're most comfortable with and you can do like whatever skill you wanted it to be. And it just seemed so like, it just seemed like such a fallacy to me. At least in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because
I think you can definitely talk yourself into using like bad settings. Like a lot of people, I made a mouse acceleration video talking about how it's like not terrible for FPSs, but there's a lot of people that use that to justify like, oh, I'm gonna keep using Windows mouse accel, which is objectively bad and inconsistent. But they're like, I've used it for all this time; it would be impossible to change.
Yeah, and to a certain extent, I understand that viewpoint because sometimes, you know, getting good at something that is kind of bad is better than just changing a setting, and then like the time it takes you to relearn everything is it's definitely a patience test.
For sure.
However, I do think that, okay, let's say you change something about your playstyle and it goes wrong and you hate it. You can always just go back, you know? You're not perma stuck on like a new setting, and like you can't go back into it. I feel like there's no harm in experimentation. It's like it's a win-win, in my opinion.
I think people have this like conception where if they change their area at all, they'll lose their skill with the old one. It's just, this doesn't happen.
Yeah, it does not. Like maybe for a couple of hours or days. Like, yeah, that's probably what's gonna happen, but that's not something you can't fix in like a week. It's really just like a marginal. It's not a marginal amount of time to get stressed about, in my opinion. And it just gives you more knowledge about what works and what doesn't work for you. that's my take on it, essentially.
Absolutely. So back in like 2015, I mentioned that you were in contention for like the best HR player of like all time, right? But at some point, you decided to diversify your skill set. You didn't just take this one skill and run with it. You're like, okay, I want to get better at speed. And I think, like at that time on your YouTube channel, you're just pumping out DT clears and FCs. And like in 2018, you're on a list of like top 10 tech players. So like you've kind of dipped into a lot of skills. And the first question I have is why? Why did you decide to diversify so much?
Why did I decide to diversify so much? Well, so there's a couple of periods where being a one trick kind of hurt me a lot more. Not okay, hurt is a very strong word, like, you know, kind of hindered my improvement.
Right.
So after the year of just like hard rock only that I did in 2014, I just kind of like hit a giant wall, could not do anything. And like suddenly like me running away from all the from the fundamentals, from no mod, from not playing speed sort of caught up with me. And I couldn't do anything. I couldn't do DT because I wasn't fast enough. I couldn't do no mod because I wasn't my reading and aim weren't good enough. And hard rock maps were also running out. So I couldn't really do any scores and stuff. So I'm like, okay, well, this isn't really going anywhere. I have nothing to lose by just like doing other stuff with my skill sets. And the first thing I did was try to fix my reading, like try to fix my hyper focusing on AR10 and above, and can't really read anything below it.
Right.
And I started by playing easy, which at the time was like apparently the best way to get your reading back, which is very debatable nowadays, but that's what it was at the time. And
that was kind of my theory too. Like force yourself to read low AR, but I feel like it just kind of adjusts yourself as opposed to like forcing you to read differently. But go ahead.
Yeah, it's maybe like, okay, so you know how when you play easy for like 30 minutes and then you go back to no mod and no mod feels like Air 11 because you've played low AR so much. So you can kind of maybe trick your brain into playing like sort of quote unquote high AR stuff by playing easy for a little bit. But other than that, I really just think it just teaches you how to play easy and not much else.
I agree.
And I guess from there I played a lot of older maps which were AR8, which was a little more practical than just playing easy. That's for sure.
Right.
Of course you know about Toy, right?
Yep.
Toy is for those of you who don't know, he's an American player who was he's sort of we looked at each other like rivals at the time period, but he kind of excelled at older type maps with hidden and, you know, like tricky rhythms with DT because that's what he started playing. He just started playing to play them, and he was always just like a beast in tournaments, and I was always so inconsistent at tournaments, and I was like, okay, this probably is a direction I should try going to.
So you think it was a result of reading?
It was a result of what was
your
actually?
Inconsistency.
One of the reason was a lack of reading. Another reason was me retry spamming too much, not finishing maps until the end. Other reasons were just sticking to a comfort zone and not delving outside of it for too long.
Right. Okay.
Stuff like that. And then around after like a month or two of me just playing like the reading stuff and a little bit of DT on the side, and I wasn't really playing unranked maps much, so I started playing unranked maps a lot more. Just by doing other stuff that wasn't hard rock for like a month or two, I was able to sort of break through that wall and just start getting scores again. But not only that, I also gained knowledge, well, not knowledge, but like, you know, mechanical and mental skill of other aspects in the game. Like I wasn't a one trick anymore. you know?
For sure.
So that's why, and I touched on it on the previous video, diversifying is important because even if you play one skill sets, skill sets in the game aren't like separate from each other. They combine together into maps, right? Like you would have to hit jumps on stream maps, or you would have to, you know, have finger control on some jump maps, even like alternating and stuff. Like they overlap each other. So at least that's my take on it when it comes to diversifying, and why that's a good thing. Also because your brain needs breaks to, you know, digest what it just did. That's also one part of it.
So you don't think that if you continue to just pursue this one like HR, you know, efficacy, you would become like extremely good at that one skill? It's better to just learn everything else.
You'll probably be pretty good if you do something for a very long time period, right?
Okay.
I just think at some point the lack of other skill sets will catch up to you in the game. It's just kind of like a race against the clock at the time. Like you can play, like, yeah, I can probably just get away playing farm DT maps. Let's say I was a new player and I wanted to get rank as fast as possible. So yeah, I can probably get away with playing DT farm maps for a while, right?
Right.
But then I would get mechanically capped on jump map with streams, for example, because I never learned how to stream. Or let's say I want to play tournaments. It's like, oh, okay, I don't really know how to play not jumps because I really only played jumps for everything I played, you know?
And
it's just fundamentals play a big role in this. Is what I'm trying to say here. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. I think that's an interesting take that a lot of people don't recognize, is that like hyper focusing on this one skill isn't necessarily the best way to improve at that one skill. But you did mention a bit about tournament play. How did your tournament career go? Because I actually did not follow the tournament scene that avidly. But you mentioned that like it kind of forced you to change your practice methods and skill set a bit.
Yeah. So I wasn't actually very active in tournaments until around 2018. Which is bizarre because my first tournament was literally OWC 2014. Which is like it's stupid because I was a one trick and I never had any tournament experience. Like I should have never played on that team. But that aside, I was pretty much a solo player, like only until around 2017, 2018. And I had and there was an American player called Apraxia. He's pretty well known now. He's as a all-rounded tournament player. He's played in 4 OWCs. Either 4 or 3, I forgot, for US at the time. And we were pretty close friends. And he just sort of convinced me to play tournaments with him. And I kind of just like reluctantly was like, yeah, fine. And then the first couple of matches, I just kind of got clobbered, even though I was good. Like I was like relatively like at a high skill cap at the time, but I still got clobbered because I just focused on one skill set and I never really focused on anything else.
Even in 2017?
Yeah. I got destroyed. Like actually. It was pretty funny. And what tournaments teach you is it just teaches you very quickly and very rapidly what you suck at and what you need to improve at the most. And because tournament pools generally start on a star level that is lower than your comfort zone, it teaches you fundamentals very well.
Right.
In my opinion, like especially group stage and stuff. Like they're relatively easy stuff compared to the rest of the tournaments. But that's not a bad thing. I think it just is able to teach you stuff that you would probably gloss over on sessions. Like you would rather probably focus on mechanics rather than, you know, playing easy 3-4 star maps. But now with tournaments also teach that aspect of gameplay to you, you know? And that kind of elevated my tournament play until around 2018. Like 2018, 2019 was probably when I was the most active in tournaments. Man, I don't think I was the best, but I was alright. I would like to think there was this 1v1 tournament that I got third place in, and it was below Vaxay and Bubbleman, and I got third, and I was like stoked. I was like, holy crap, I might actually be good.
This is a solo
And
tourney?
yeah, it was a
Damn,
1v1 tournament.
okay.
And I got third, and it was like a highlight.
Hey,
Like it was
who did you
crazy.
beat? Who else was in that tourney?
Man, oh man, I don't remember the brackets, but if I Google it for long enough, I would probably find it.
It's all good.
Uh, and it just taught me skill sets that I would not focus on otherwise if I wasn't playing tournaments.
Hmm.
And that kind of escalated until I think probably like the best performance like in one tournament I had was probably getting first place in the tech tournament, where I was up against Bubbleman and barely clutched the tiebreaker win on the grand finals.
Bro,
And I was it was hype. Like I was first place, and Bubbleman was second, and Batty was third place.
that's crazy.
And
You're nuts.
it was
Holy
like-
shit.
Yeah, and it's like, I'm not saying that like as a flex. I'm saying that because I'm genuinely shocked I even did that. I'm like, how did that even happen? And that was kind of the highlight at the time. And man, I just felt like I could play everything.
Hmm. So you finally felt the reward of diversifying your skill set, and that's an interesting approach on tournaments. It's not just about like the consistency. It's like you really quickly find out what you're bad at.
Yes,
Yeah, and then
100%.
would that become the focus of your OS career at any point in time? Like for focusing on like your tournament performances?
It was for a certain time period, yeah. Yeah, it was. I'm a lot less. Some people take it, much further because that's just what they enjoy with the game, and that's fine, of course. But I would always like to have solo sessions in between tournament play. Like I wouldn't strictly focus on just tournaments. I also don't think only focusing on tournaments is a good thing either. I think you can find a balance. Because solo play also teaches you skill sets that you won't really learn in tournaments. Like, for example, grinding a score. Like, you would think that's not a skill. A lot of people would think that's not a skill set, but it actually is. There is a sort of mentality with tournament players where it's like, oh, okay, I'm just going to play a map once and then move on
Right.
to something else. And what happens is it's hard to find this like inherent motivation to just sit on a map and just like play it for an hour or two. Like it just doesn't happen if you have that mindset of just like, okay, tournaments, like I only have one chance, and it teaches you patience. It also teaches you what you do wrong on maps. Let's say you miss on a certain part in a map. You can always, if you only play the map once, you wouldn't even know that's a part you miss on more than once. So you can just watch your replay and kind of fix your aim accordingly. And tournaments don't really do that, I guess, or they do that much less now. So the goal is to find a balance between tournament and solo play. At least that was my goal at the time.
I think it's a really neat take. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's definitely tournament-only players that do well in their own respective fields, but like there's definitely always value to be had by going outside of your comfort zone.
Yes, definitely.
Let's talk about your play style, your aim style a little bit. And I think I first saw someone do this. It was Dragon Human, like Sayonara Bai. He would tap his pen on the tablet on every circle for whatever reason. I kind of wanted you to explain it because it's something I've been curious about. I don't really know that well. But it's not one sec. It's not common. Like typically people either hover or drag, but you're tapping, but you don't have mouse buttons on, so it's not like tap X. So can you
Yeah,
explain the
so
style?
yeah, first of all, yeah, Dragon Human was the first one I saw do this.
Hmm.
And so for the first year I just like hovered only, like no drag, no nothing. And then a year later I tried dragging and it kind of worked until the nib wore off and it kind of just like stopped working. And how do I say it? It was around like what, December of 2014 where I was talking to this one player from Israel called Mr. Potato. He was a Hard Rock player in 2014, and we were really close to each other in rank, and he would tap on notes. And I think I got that idea from him. I tried it out, and I'm like, wait, that might be viable as a way to like snap to notes more easily, because especially when you just like hover only or drag only, snapping, at least to me, never came naturally.
Huh.
It was sort of something you had to develop, and tapping just kind of solved that issue. However, it also came at the cost of your cursor just being harder to control on, let's say, like really fast jump patterns, for example, and really fast, how do I say it? Anything that it requires, because like think about it, you're constantly like raising and lowering your pen, like you're changing friction between like the air and like your tablet.
Right.
So it makes it, control comes much harder than if you would playing hover or drag. It's just, again, like it's just a matter of like what weakness are you able, or are you willing to adapt to the most?
Exactly.
And for me, that was the weakness that I was like I was willing to kind of like take the L in terms of control and have that snapping ability. Yeah.
Huh. I remember having another conversation with Forz on his stream, and I think he told me about or rather, I think he showed up to my stream like very embarrassingly and said that I have like a very aggressive style of aiming, because I think I like saw how Cinia aimed, like really snappy, really precise, really controlled. And I'm like, dude, I want to do that. I want to like instantly snap to notes and just like immediately sit right where it's gonna be. So I kind of forced snappiness into my aim. But like after he watched me, he's like, you're forcing snappiness, but it should be a result of good aim as opposed to being like what you're aiming for.
Yeah, and I remember we talked about it a few days ago in the chat, and just wondering actually, do you play mouse? Because I saw in the introduction video you played with mouse. Did you still do that, or was there a tablet period?
I am mostly a tablet player, but I play with mouse, so I don't try hard as much.
I gotcha. Because the thing with mouse is your aim just looks much snappier than you would playing tablet.
Mm-hmm.
And mouse players get that a lot. That just like, wow, their aim looks like auto.
It does.
And it's because, yeah, it's like when you think about it, you're just like dragging across the surface with a pen that's like the size of your hand, right?
Mm.
It makes sense. But so, like, let's assume you play tablet, because that would probably, like, from experience, because I would play tablet as well.
Right.
Regarding snapping, so the whole tapping thing that I started doing definitely helped snapping, but it didn't come naturally from control. Like I was really awful at control when I first started playing that playstyle. And to touch on your on your question, it was something about how snapping needs to come naturally and how you shouldn't force it. And yeah, I think for a time period I did try to force it. It wasn't in 2015, it was actually later, in about 2018, where I tried to like force myself to hard snap everything. And it just like never went anywhere. I was just like missing on stuff I wouldn't be missing otherwise. I was overshooting stuff I would hit normally. It just like never progressed anywhere. And what I realized was, and this applies to tapping as well, because I think I also talked to this in chat, that forcing, like, let's say if you want to play streams, well, the general tip for streams is be light with your fingers. Don't exert as much strain as you don't need to. Like, try to reduce the amount of strain as much as possible. But when you force yourself to be light without having good technique yet, you just end up not pressing the key down. You know, it's pretty weird. So it's the same thing about aiming. If you force something, it's not going to magically just. You need to gradually over time reduce the amount of strain it requires you to snap or requires you to tap. Like it's the same thing. Like, let's say I need to aim really strongly to be able to snap to notes, right? So if I naturally over time, like over the time period of like a couple of months, let's say, just got more used to like the way I aim stuff or like my area or whatever, and I would slowly just like decrease the amount of strengths. Like, you don't even need to consciously do it. I think it's just like comes naturally. I think, at least.
You mean snapping or control?
Both.
Okay.
You sort of naturally just get accustomed to putting less force than you need to. Like, it should be a gradual thing. It shouldn't be something you force yourself to do.
Do you think it's something you should keep in the back of your head anyway? Like, something you should actively... Okay.
Yeah. Don't force it, but try to adjust towards it slowly. Like, don't aim it for be like a one-day transformation, because that usually never works. Yeah, that was essentially the whole thing about snapping. It's like, don't force a technique you're not used to, is the best way to go about it.
Yeah, that's actually great advice, because I definitely had that habit a lot of times. Like, I stole people's grips, I stole people's like tapping styles, but it really should come gradually and natural.
Man, grips is a thing and a half.
I remember my whole life I was writing with my my pen between my fourth and middle finger. And then with Os I was doing the same thing. I'm like, okay, but Quickeasy looks like he has so much more control by putting between his first two. So I actually like changed my grip that I would use for writing on top of like just of Os, and I think that was, I wouldn't say it was a mistake, but it was not necessary for sure.
So the thing about grips is, let's say they're like, you know how I said about areas, they have strengths and weaknesses?
Right.
Grips are kind of the same thing, in my opinion. Man, it would be really hard to show this without a camera, but let's say you hold a pen and you use your fingers to aim. It would result in much easier movement, but at the cost of not being stable at all. So to circumvent this, what a lot of people do is they use really big areas to sort of combat that shakiness, because movement comes naturally for them anyway. So they don't really mind using big areas if they get more stability from using, like, you know, more surface of their tablets. And on the contrary, you know Xerius, right?
Yeah.
He always had a grip of just like death gripping with no finger movement, right?
Yep.
And what that results is, it results in like very, very strong stability, but you're barely able to move your pen anywhere.
I was blown away watching his live play for the first, because he had like a tiny area, which was really uncommon for the time, and like he held his pen at the top like sideways. It was it blew me away. And
so the only way he could probably use that grip was with a really small area. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's just a matter of finding the weakness with your grip and adjusting your playstyle accordingly. You know, just stuff like that. Because really, I just think you should. Your writing grip is probably good enough. Like, I really don't think you should force a grip you're not used to.
I agree.
Because that's just like, let's say it works. Like, where's the fun in that? You know?
Wait, what do you mean?
It's just like, yeah, okay, like I copied someone else's grip. That's boring. You know?
You want to be original?
I'm just gonna do my own thing.
All right.
Yeah, let's be original, man. It's like, that's probably actually not a great way to improve, but you can probably use grips and areas from other players as sort of a starting point.
Right. That's how I feel about it too. Like when people say like, "What's
Yeah.
your sense?" I'm like, find your own, but also like pick something reasonable.
It's like if you don't know what you're doing with your playstyle, using other people as reference is great, right? Because you know how that time period where I played with like 20mm area,
Right,
I probably could have skipped those first couple of months if I just looked at other playstyles, It was sort of a waste to just like try to get used to that sensitivity. So starting out, I would recommend actually looking at other playstyles and just trying different stuff out, seeing what works for you. But when you find something, you can sort of deviate to fit your own, type of grip, type of sitting, type of even like, placing your hand on tablet or mouse on mouse pad, you can sort of change it to fit your own specific needs. Like you don't need to stick to one playstyle just because like, oh, this player you looked up to used it, just stuff like that.
Right. Were you the one that used to use like construction paper on their tablet, or is that someone else?
I had the idea, and I think actually I was the one who gave Rafis that idea actually, which is weird to think about because they usually, I mean, it's whatever, right? But it was a matter of friction.
Right.
And the thing with paper is like it wears out really quickly. So you would have to replace one every like couple of days. And that's just
days, wow.
Yeah. Maybe not days, but like a week, right?
Okay.
Like I remember Rafis would change one like every couple of streams. It was pretty funny. And people nowadays just solve the friction thing by getting like either a different nib or just like a tablet cover, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, like I think it just falls into experimentation. Like feel free to do it. Try it out. If it works, great, use it. If it doesn't, then just feel free to go back to something.
Do you think there's a point in which like experimenting with playstyle goes too far? Like you're limiting your own progress by like trying too many things? Or do you think that like all experience kind of adds up to each other?
If you're not able to stick to something, then yeah, that's going too far.
Okay.
Because yeah, if you change your area every like day or two, then yeah, you're not really learning any muscle memory from a day of experience, right? I would say give it like a week or a month, and then kind of like assess what your strengths and weaknesses are on that playstyle, because there's always weaknesses to every playstyle.
Right.
And see what you prefer. Like see what gives the most performance or what you're most comfortable with.
Oops. Oh my god. I just flipped my mouse over and left the room. All right.
Oh,
whatever.
Sorry, I haven't been focusing on the game. It's like
no, it's all good.
I am not a multitasker apparently. Anyway, yeah.
But I have another question about. 1 second. There you go. I have another question about like the theoretical side of OS, right? So I had this conversation with a player at some point, and obviously player skill as a whole has progressed on average, but like so has mapping and training tools, and it's a lot easier to get good than it was like 4 or 5 years ago. When I had this conversation with the person who was very good, they said like a new player can get to their level of skill in about like 6 months or so. Which of course it took them like multiple years of cultivating their like reading and aim, whatever. But if he had all of the ideas and like theories that he has about like all the mechanics and improvement, it would take half the time. Do you think a lot of OS improvement is more on like the trial and error and the theoretical side of things, or is it going to come down like mostly to practice and mechanics?
So I think like the sort of concept of theory crafting, you build that from people who've played before you, right? That's just like human nature. Like people discover stuff to make other stuff easier, and then the people who come after them use that stuff, and it just like decreases the length of time to do something, right? And it kind of works in the same way. Like I actually another video idea I was thinking about like how theory crafting is like dead in a way, because like
or in general?
Not necessarily. I think other games kind of suffer the same thing, where it's like,
Huh.
how do I say it? It's just like high mechanical skill is more looked up to than ways to look at the game.
Mhm.
I think a lot of conversations in 2013 and 2014 were about different ways of reading and different ways of like looking at stuff. But nowadays
right.
I just see less of it. I don't know. I don't even think it's related to Osu alone. I think like even other games have that, just like, okay, theory crafting aside, what is the flashiest thing I can do to like clip and show to a Twitch stream?
Oh,
Like
I
like
see.
like something like that type of thing.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, it's kind of sad, but there's probably a reason to like, I don't think you should give up on theory crafting. Like, just because it's not popular, it's like, it's essentially like the fun finding different ways to do stuff more efficiently. Like, you know how with speedrunning, people are actively researching for ways to break the game, to get faster routes for speedrunning. It's something like that, I would say, actually.
Huh, that's an interesting way to look at it, even though it's like a mechanical skill. So do you think it's true that having all of these ideas from the get-go would allow a player to get better faster?
I would definitely say listen to your elders in that sense, because yeah, man, like if I had the resources I knew now, then yeah, of course I would get better more quickly if I had the same motivation and drive as I did before. And yeah, it's definitely easier for newer players to sort of look at that information and do what has been tested already. I guess it's like, yeah, I guess some of the theory crafting has already been like solved, quote unquote solved for them, but that shouldn't stop them from thinking of stuff on their own, in my opinion. That's sort of my take on it. Like, you should probably give it a thought, because well, first of all, it's fun. At least in my opinion, it's fun. But sometimes ways of looking at the game works for you only, but doesn't work for other people. Because like ways to read maps, like you don't really know how other people read maps. Like you're not able to enter the consciousness of another human and like see how they look at the map, right? It's not really a thing. So being able to think about like how you look at stuff is just like to find the most easy and efficient way for you.
Yeah,
It's a skill set you should probably have. Yeah,
I agree. And it really harkens back to the more experience you have, the better you'll understand the game.
yeah, and that's why experimenting is so important, because experimenting just gives you more experience, like automatically.
Exactly. All right, I have another question about something completely different. But as I began to like distance myself from the OS community, I came to the realization that like the average age of like the top 50 was gradually going down. Right? I actually used to feel bad that HVic was the same age as me, and he was like twice as good. But now we have people like Whitecat, Mrek, and Vaxi, and like, all these other young players that are just at the top of the game. Do you think that?
By the way, I'm glad we're the same age. By the way, because I'm also as old as HVic. So
Okay.
You're 22, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. Anyway, yeah.
Do you think that their skill is partially a result of their age?
Yes.
In what sense?
So it's literally scientifically proven that when you're younger, your brain has more neuroplasticity in it. It makes learning stuff much more quickly than if you were older than that. Right? It's like there's literally research done about it, and it's true. And I would even go a step further. And when you're younger, you doubt yourself a lot less than you would when you're older. Do you get that feeling, or is it just me?
I probably did, because I was a very, very reserved kid. But I definitely see what you mean. Like, people feel like they're invincible, like they're gonna be the best. There are people like who play Fortnite. They believe that they're the best at the game. Just because they just don't know any better.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's like you know less, so you're less able to doubt yourself.
Right, right.
And when you get older, you kind of have these like subconscious voices of doubt in your head that you just didn't have when you were 13 or 14. So even even from not even from a physical like brain perspective, like even from a mental perspective, then it is easier to improve when you're younger. Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
However, improvement isn't like it doesn't come to a halt after you reach a certain age, you know? Like it's not like, okay, I hit 20, so I'm like never gonna improve at anything on this. So like, no, that's not true. Maybe it'll come slower to you than other people, maybe, but that's, at least in my opinion, that's not a reason to not try. Like you will still improve. And I'll go a step further and say that you're able to look at ways that you wouldn't be able to look at if you were a few years younger. Because people just look at like, you know, the play more meme, right?
Right,
Just
yeah.
like if you play a lot, you'll get better. So when you're young, you don't really think about it. You just kind of play more.
That kind of leads
But when
into the
you're
next question I had about this before you go any further. Like, do you think these players at the top actually think about the way that they practice and all these improvement theories as much or like at all?
no, I don't think so actually.
Really? So you think they
Yeah.
are just playing more and popping off?
Yeah, it's. I feel like the more time I spent in the game, the more I realized how people like just like don't pay attention to theory crafting.
Huh.
That's kind of why I say theory crafting is dead. Not because, and I'm not saying this to like as a jab to the other players, like not at all. If that's their way to look at the game, if that's their way to look at other stuff, then you know, all the power to them. But yeah, I think there is a general pattern of just like not thinking about stuff, and it's great if it works for you, but if it doesn't work, like let's say you got correct, you got like a correct way of looking at the game on like 2 aspects out of 3. So these 2 aspects go well, but the other aspect would be flawed inherently. And if you just had that mentality of, okay, I'm not going to think about it ever, then you'll never find a way to fix that 3rd aspect. You know what I mean?
How do you suppose that they became so well-rounded then? Because that's the thing that really gets me, is that I feel like achieving well-roundedness is something you have to do intentionally, by like identifying weaknesses and working on them, you know, with time. But if you're just playing like, you know, without thinking about it too much, I feel like most people just gravitate to what they're already good at and become like these one-trick ponies that play, you know, DT farm maps.
So, man, I kind of want to say it's a personality thing. I don't think they don't think about it. That would also be kind of insulting. So
Right.
I wouldn't really want to say that either. So they probably do think about it, but they either do it subconsciously or they sort of do other stuff on the side. Like, you know how when you're younger, you're not really able to, you kind of just like go by feel and you're not really able to analyze stuff. That's why I'm saying it's a personality thing. Maybe like being someone who analyzes stuff is actually a personality thing. Because man, if you watch that Xerius interview with Happy Stick, if you remember that, it was like 3 years ago. He was just like, yeah, I just like turned my brain off and played rapid jump maps for like 4 hours a day, and I just got like rank 4.
Oh,
you know?
my god.
And it's just like wow, I put so much thought and effort in this game, and then this guy just turns his brain off. It's just like, what? Just like doing that.
I guess he like kind of accidentally walked himself into a good way to improve his aim, but still, yeah, that kind of hurts.
I wouldn't say it hurts because they would not be able to do what I did, and I would probably not be able to do what they did.
Okay, yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
That's why I say it's a personality thing, you know? Because they probably, their way of turning their brain off probably came the easiest to them, and my way of thinking about stuff came the easiest to me. And if that's your way to look at stuff, whether it be like not even Osu, just like stuff you want to be good at in general, just like school or work or like
Right.
other hobbies. If that's your way to get you like pumped up and stuff, then do that. Like, don't go against your nature. Just like because you see a player who like turned his brain off and just like got good that way, uh, I wouldn't recommend again. I wouldn't recommend doing that. Like trying to copy his way of thinking, because if it is inherently going against your nature, like, man, you're just gonna be miserable. I don't
Right.
know.
Right.
I know I was, at least when I tried to, like, there was definitely a period where when I thought my way of thinking was flawed, but I'm like, man, this is not fun. I don't want to do something that's not fun, you know? So I'm just like, okay, yeah, whatever. I'm still gonna do what I do that I like. And other people can do whatever they want that they like. That's kind of a matter of personality.
All right, that's a
That's
great
at least,
answer. I really like your
yeah.
perspective on that, because I think a lot of people would be discouraged by this idea of like, I'm thinking about this way more than them and they're still getting better than me. But yeah, the fact that it boils down to just like people improve in different ways, it's a beautiful thing.
Regarding that, because man, I've had those thoughts for like how many years now? Like 5?
Hmm.
Because man, if you don't know, I'm the highest level in standard, which means highest total score, and I have the most total hits in the game.
Right.
Uh, and I'm like top 10 when it comes to play count. So yeah, I've played a lot, right? And again, that's not a flex. I'm saying that because you look at other people who've put like half the time as you did, like not even, get just like so much better, and it just like kind of crushes your self-esteem,
Right. I was gonna ask
right?
about that. I've got that written down. It's like, did it discourage you to see people getting better faster than you? Make you want to
Yeah,
rethink everything?
yeah. Like to say no would be to lie. Like, yeah, it definitely was a thing that discouraged me for a long time. However, man, it's like, the thing about that is like it's a comparison mindset. Like, you're comparing yourself with someone who's not even you, who doesn't think the same way you, who doesn't play the same types of stuff you do, who doesn't look at stuff the same ways you do. Like, there's no, like, you're two different people going about things in different ways. There's no comparison to make here. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It's really just like a race. It's not a race against the world. It really isn't. Like, especially with how like addictive games are designed to be, you think it's like literally you against the world. And that's just like, it's a flawed way of thinking, in my opinion, because it's just like, it's great if you're ahead, but if you lose, then it's just like, okay, well, crap, you know?
I feel like
So
the best players are often born from that competitive mindset, though. Like, yes, you'll be defeated and like distraught when you lose, but like that drive to be the best is what's gonna keep you up, like practicing at ridiculous hours.
yeah, probably. I mean, man, I don't know, because I guess I wasn't incredibly competitive.
Hmm.
I mean, I was competitive with, I never went out of my way to try to look at other people, and the times I did was, the times when my confidence hit like an all-time low.
Right.
But yeah, I think it's just important to realize, like, not even like when it comes to Osu, when it comes to Osu, when it comes to like even other stuff in your life that you have other people doing against. So it's like, it's not a race against the world. It's literally like a race between you and the you were before yesterday, like in the past. Like, are you better than the you from yesterday? Are you better than the you from a year ago? Like, that is the only like fair competition that is like viable
Yeah.
in my book.
I really like that. It's the whole embodiment of the self-improvement mindset. And like when you have these external forces driving you to get better at whatever you care about, eventually they're not going to last. But like that drive to be better than you were like the previous day, like that's just going to be there forever.
Yeah, exactly. And it's there's this man, I don't want to sound like depressing, but there's this thing called like the just world fallacy, where it's like everyone is born equal with equal opportunities and equal like, stuff. Like, there's this meme where it's like, oh, genetics are like the only reason why people get good at speed and stuff like that, right? And to some extent that is kind of true. Like, some people's stuff just comes easier to them than others. It's just like, it's just human nature. It's how geniuses are a thing. It's why geniuses are a thing, And I say, like, why bother yourself with that if, one, that's something you can't control, and two, that person isn't even, like, related to you in any way,
Right, yeah.
It's just like, okay, so you're born with, like, this and that special type of ability or lack thereof or whatever. Like, I'm gonna work with what I have, and since I'm only competing with like the previous version of myself, then there really isn't any rush to go anywhere,
That's pretty much the
That's
advice I give as well when people talk about like IQ or genetics as a whole. Is like, don't worry about that. Don't worry about your limits. Work on like yourself, and this is just self you were yesterday, because it's a much healthier mindset for like, especially when you're trying to overcome weaknesses. Like, blaming it on genetics is just gonna get you nowhere.
So yeah, that's kind of what I mean. Like, it's really easy to go the route of just like, okay, I'll never be good as like that guy because he got lucky and I didn't, right?
Right.
Just like it's a really black and white way of thinking, but I'm saying that on purpose because a lot of people fall into that trap, and I fell into that trap like way too many times, right?
Right.
But it's just like, okay, let's say he is better than you. Like, what's that gonna change about you? Like, nothing, Like, one guy being better than you at one other thing does not... First of all, it doesn't really impact your situation in any way. And it won't advance you as a person. Or as a player or whatever, like, you want to do. So... my best advice is focus on stuff you can control, because you can't control what other people do with their time or with their life. That's really just all there is to it. It's like, yeah, okay, people aren't born with equal opportunities, but man, who cares? Just like play the game anyway. Like,
I love it. So how has your approach on improvement at OS as a whole like changed over time? Like, I'm sure you've gone through a lot of like mental shifts in the way you think about the game. Are there any ones that are like noteworthy that you want to bring up?
Mental shifts. Do you have anything in particular?
Sure. Like hyper-focusing was a good example of like, you probably spent a bunch of time working directly on your weaknesses, but then later on you came to have a different opinion on it, or like maybe your practice methods have changed. Right.
Yeah. Okay, well, the biggest one was that playtime was like equal to improvement time. Like, the more you played literally in hours was like the more you improved, right? Like that, like head through the wall sort of way of thinking that a lot of younger people have, where it's just like, oh, if I just play more than everyone else, then I'll just be like rank 1, right? Because that's how it works. And yeah, that's not how it works, obviously. And man, my play hours were ridiculous when I first started playing. Like, I had 10-hour sessions back in like 2014 and 2015. It was not healthy at all. Like, it's crazy, right? It's also part of my personality because I've always been like this type of guy who is absorbed into stuff he's interested in. But you kind of realize like, oh, okay, well, playing a lot probably won't work, so I probably don't even need to spend as much time as I think I should. So really, I wouldn't say, like, I would say you can probably go 4 hours, like 4 hours a day and below is probably good enough. Like, and you don't even have to do it daily. Like, if you play like 4 hours, 3 hours a day, like let's say 4 times a week, you're probably gonna be fine. Like it comes to a point where you gotta like find a balance between like pushing yourself and also giving yourself time to rest.
Right, right. Would you say that like the 4 hour range is more optimal than like the longer sessions as a whole?
Yeah.
Okay.
Shorter sessions with breaks between them is like literally proven to be more effective for improvement than long marathon session. You know how like cramming for exams and stuff is never recommended?
Right, right.
Or like, you know, taking a week before the test to like go an hour, like an hour a day for a week instead of like 7 hours on like a Sunday before the exam.
Mhm.
Because yeah, it just gives your brain time to sit and again digest the stuff, and you're also more focused when you do it. So yeah, I would say set limits. I really don't think you need more than 4 hours a day. You can probably even go lower than that if that's what if that's what you're more comfortable with. Like, don't overdo it. Like, it's not like, use me as a reference, right? Like, look at me, at the guy who overdid it, and it didn't work out. So, like, use that to like gauge how much time you should be spending in the game.
I think that concept of like you're less focused is also really important because like that play more idea, like not all practice is created equal. Like if you're not caring or not thinking at all about what you're doing, it's not going to be as productive.
Yeah.
And the longer your sessions
100%.
are, the more it's going to happen.
I think, at least for me, after like 2 hours, my brain just kind of goes on autopilot and doesn't think about anything. Like, maybe I'm under the illusion that I'm thinking of something, but in reality, I'm just like zoning out and not really doing anything with my brain power. Haha. It's the song. Yeah. Sorry.
Cut the mic.
But yeah, it's really, you need to like, you know how people say it's like, oh, like take 90 minutes, like use 90 minutes of work and then take like 10 to 20 minutes break to like kind of refresh your mind
Right,
and
right.
look at stuff. I think the same thing just like should apply here. Like, I don't see a reason why you shouldn't do that. Like, don't overload yourself. Like, first of all, this game isn't your job, right? Like, focus on other stuff. Like, if you're having like, it gives you time to like, you know, focus on school and work and you know, other stuff that isn't really this game. And not only that, it like how I said with regards to practice, that rest is actually the time where you improve, not the time you actually push yourself. It's that time of rebuilding the muscles that is the most critical.
I think a lot of improvement can be likened to like working out, like those breaks, those off days, those like rest periods. Like there's so many overlaps, and I think it's a very healthy way to approach improving it. Like just anything, you know, it doesn't have to be about OS either.
It's called progressive overload, right? I think.
I've heard of the term. Not quite sure what it means. But...
It's a thing with weightlifting, where you sort of go outside your comfort zone for like, let's say like 2 hours, or I'm not sure how much time people like lift weights for it, but like you do something that is outside of your comfort zone, like of your muscles, for like an hour and a half, and then you take a day or two off to let your muscles rest. And then when they rebuild themselves, they come back stronger, and you're able to just kind of repeat the process of getting out of your comfort zone and just like over time just like increase the strength of your muscles. Like, it's the same thing in my opinion.
I do know you mentioned that you're also very good at this this hobby or this sport called speed stacking.
Yeah. so before Osu, that's what I did.
Oh, it was before Osu.
Yeah. My channel was actually like a stacking channel. And yeah, it's a story, but it's very similar to cubing, because I know you do cubing, right?
Right.
It was sort of like the other thing. It was a bit more niche than cubing, but yeah, to those who don't know, you there are 12 cups. You stack them in formations, and you compete for the fastest time. There was an online community, and there still is, I think. And I did that, and I think I was also around like top 10 back in 2011 ish. Like I wasn't very old at the time, but
But the reason I bring it up is because
Yeah.
I'm curious if any of those ideas that allowed you to become so good at speed tag apply it to OS and like apply it to other things that you try to get good at. Or did you just kind of do the I'm just gonna keep doing it until I get good?
I want to say that they did, but they really didn't. But let's say if now I wanted to get good at something, then yeah, I would probably use that experience. But I think I was just like too young to like think about it.
Yeah, that is something we bring
know?
up pretty often actually. Is that like getting good at anything gives you a lot of overlapping skills, but it only happens if you actively like do metacognition, like just you think about what's happening in the process. But yeah, I think it's really neat that you've got that additional skill. Do you still do it at all?
I haven't done it in a while. I still keep up with the community. There was actually a funny incident with some guy who made Twitter videos who discovered OSU from me because I uploaded OSU videos on a stacking channel, and he used to do that too. And I'm like, huh, wow, I actually have an influence on people. That's a bit bizarre to think of. And it was quite a wholesome conversation actually. We had a lot of fun. But you know how I mentioned about how I talked about like how when you're young you tend to like not really think processes too hard? I think the same thing sort of happened to me back then. That's why I'm saying it didn't really move from one skill to another. But I think if I did something now, then I would use past knowledge. And I feel like if you're able to, then you probably should.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. It's just something that comes with age, more awareness of your surroundings and like life as a whole. Yeah, it's a neat little aside that I wanted to touch on because I think it's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think one similar thing that these two have in common, also with cubing, by the way, is that you're not like matched with a team against another team. You're just like on your own, and you're just sort of competing with yourself. And that was always the type of stuff that I had the most interest in. Speedrunning is also very similar in that aspect, where like yeah, there are online leaderboards, but in the end, it's really just like you against like your best other time.
Right.
You know, and it's just easier to like, how do I say it? To just like zone out the world and just like focus on you. At least that's how I look at it.
Very nice. So there's a question I get a lot from people who are like just getting into OS, and it's not something I typically have an answer for, because I feel like well, the question is like, how do I get better at OS? Like, what should I do to get better faster? And I feel like at that level, I usually just say like it doesn't really matter. It's about like the 4-star range when play styles and skill sets start to diversify. But do you have any advice for someone getting into OS in like as a new player? Like, what would you tell them to do?
From a beginner perspective?
Right.
So I think for the first 6 months, you should literally just play maps to get familiar with the game. Like, it literally doesn't matter what you play, as long as it's not like outside of your comfort zone, like so much that you're not able to tell what's going on. Like, don't go that route, but you need to, it's about setting fundamentals and learning the basics is the important part here. Download a lot of maps. Don't stick to a couple of maps, especially when you start, because you only have like 10 maps nowadays.
Right.
And like back then, you really had like no maps. Like you only had the tutorial and that's it. Download a lot of maps. Join multi-lobbies. Multi-lobbies get you exposed to new maps. Play different styles of play to that sort of diversity at the beginning will build your fundamentals really high, and it'll teach you what you like to play and what you don't like to play. And if you found out what you like to play, then you can just like focus on that. You know what I mean?
I guess that's fair. Do you think that people should focus like I think most people what they don't like to play is what they're bad at, right?
Yeah.
So do you think there's a point in which you should like bite the bullet and do it anyway?
Let's say, like, I think for the first year of playing, you shouldn't be concerned with your weaknesses. Like,
Really?
you should just like build your fundamentals and just like play all styles of maps you can.
Wow.
I think when it comes to, you know, when you actually like want to rank up and stuff, like eventually you're gonna notice your strengths and weaknesses. Like, I'm pretty sure everyone sort of gets to that point at some period, like in not even like when it comes to Osu, like even with other games or other stuff you want to be good at, like you know what you're good at, you know what you're weak at, and again, like I said in the previous video I made, was the best advice would be find like 30 minutes in a session to work on it, but don't stop what you're doing with, you know, building fundamentals and playing different styles of maps and like pushing yourself. Like focus on your, like dedicate like let's say you play 4 hours, like dedicate like an hour to practicing your weakness, and then with those other remaining 3 hours just like try to push yourself or like do other stuff, try to familiarize yourself with other parts of the game. And that would be, yeah, that would be like after when you discovered your weakness. Like that shouldn't be until after about like a year of playing, because it's just about building fundamentals and that takes like time.
All right. Is that a bit about it for the advice you have for new players?
Is there anything in particular else that you would want me to try to mention?
Not really. It's just a question I've always had a hard time covering. But if that's it, that's fine. That's good.
Man. So it's really just push yourself, but also find a way to like find the balance between pushing yourself and playing stuff that reinforces the basics and fundamentals. Like let's say you can probably pass like 6-star maps, right? So keep playing them because they do push you mechanically, but don't neglect the basic like 4-star maps that you can FC, for example.
Right.
Try to find a balance between those two. That would be the best way to not only push yourself mechanically, but get reminded of the fundamentals that you do need.
Right.
Also, don't compare yourself to other players, especially when you're young. That happens quite a bit. People improve at different rates. People have different play styles. Different play styles actually can gravitate you towards being good at some aspects and being bad at other aspects. So comparison is just not going to lead you anywhere. And other than that, just try to enjoy yourself. Like when you have fun, you improve the most too.
I agree.
Like I haven't actually talked about that, but do stuff that is like the most fun to you when it comes to, like, let's say you want to get good at aim. Like if you suck at aim and you want to get good at aim, don't play aim maps you hate. Like just play stuff you like, you know? That's it'll help motivation, and it'll like it'll get you asking like, okay, yeah, that's what I want to be good at. I want to play like the good stuff that I like, not like. It just like puts you in a better way of thinking, in my opinion. But yeah, but that's about it, really.
All right, that's good stuff. So I've got a few questions specifically about OS. I guess the first one is not really OS specific, but it's about a topic that I get asked about a lot on various skills, and that's how you break through plateaus. Like you recognize you're not getting better at a specific skill, or you're not increasing your rank. How have you gone about getting past those like mental blocks?
Do something different, I would say. Whether it be a playstyle change, whether it be playing different skill sets, whether it be I don't know, different skins, different hits. Like what you're doing right now is probably not working if you're plateauing, right?
Right.
So experiment, do other stuff, and you'll gain experience. Not only that, you'll let your brain rest from, like, if you're not improving, you're probably like getting frustrated and trying to push yourself even harder, and that just like tires you out, you know? So not only does it give your brain a rest, but it also just gets you more knowledge on hey, maybe if I do this differently, then I can fix the plateau I've been having, you know? Like, you know that plateau I talked about in 2015 where I was only able to play hard rock and I was like really mechanically capped on stuff? So playing reading stuff also reinforced mechanics, and it also reinforced consistency. And not only that, playing, you know, hard unranked maps pushed me with aim more than I would when I wouldn't be playing them. And that sort of gradually just came to me with my skill sets, and I was able to translate that into getting scores again. You know? But I guess really the most important part is do something different. Don't ram yourself against that wall over and over and over again. Like, clearly something is not working. Don't try to fight with it, or don't try to fight against it. Try something different, and if that doesn't work, well, you're in a wall anyway, so it's not like you would be improving if you didn't try it, right?
True.
Like, as funny as it sounds, but yeah, do something different, and if that doesn't work, do something else and something else and something else until eventually you'll find an answer, you know? And if that doesn't work, ask other people for advice. Don't be stuck with your own thoughts. That is also something I should recommend, is ask people for advice. People aren't against you here.
Yeah, I think that's something that I had to get over a few years ago, is like this kind of pride that I know how to improve better than other people. But like the more perspectives you have, the more ideas that people throw at you. You like think in different ways. You think about improvement or like how to play in a few different perspectives. And I think that's really valuable.
Yeah, that's actually one thing that's another thing I wanted to make a video about was don't be afraid to share your ideas with other people, and don't be afraid to ask for help. Because like, even when you think about it even logically, then you really only have one brain, right? So your brain has a very limited amount of processing power, right? Like, even if you're a genius, even if you're a savant, like whatever, right? You still really only have one brain and like that amount of computer power to go through. And the more you share your ideas with people, you literally like increase the amount of processing power thinking about that method, and you're able to gain feedback from those people to not only help you but help them as well, you know?
Right.
I really hope I didn't confuse you, because I mentioned brains and it's like, it's like ooh. But you know what I mean? Like, sharing your ideas can help improve them, and feedback can give advice as well.
Yeah, for sure. All right, but now for the O specific questions, I want to ask about top 5 mappers for you.
That's hard.
Yep.
That's really hard. Okay, well, I can tell you who number 1 is, and that's Skystar from the 2013 to 2015 period. He's still like it's like one of the most fun experiences I've ever had with the game.
Me too. It was really stark for me, because I used to hate his maps, and then over time I'm like, damn, this is sick.
I think this is a very common new player mentality. When they see something they're not used to, they're like, okay, this sucks. It's like the worst thing I've ever seen, and I've been guilty of that as well. And it's getting better in recent years. I'd like to think that, especially with how different mapping styles are nowadays. It's just like, you know, be open to different types of thinking and stuff. But yeah, you said top 5 mappers, right?
You don't have to do 5, but just a few of them that you want to plug.
Skystar, Hollow Wings, right? Those are like the 2 obvious ones.
Yep.
I really like the Chinese mappers, Zwibe He's a bit less commonly known, but he made a lot of maps in 2013 and 2014. I really like his stuff. Natsumirin, Old,
Damn.
you know, Val even, like Val 108, you know?
Yep.
I really like those types of maps would be my favorites. Yeah.
When you were getting better at the game, were there players that you look up to, or are there players now that you look up to?
Yes. Yes and yes. Well, in 2014, I looked up to Azer and the Lua the most.
Okay, that makes sense.
Because they were essentially like the hard rock players at the time, and I'm very sure I wasn't the only one. The more I played the game, the more I started looking up to Ruruchi. Because he was rank 1. Not for his mindset, for his scores.
Oh, okay.
Like he was setting like the coolest scores I've ever seen. Like there's this map called Wadatsumi, which is very unpopular, but it was in a top 10 video, and when I saw it for the first time, it was like I couldn't understand what was going on the screen, and he was just like FCing it with DT. And it's just like, wait, that's so different from like everyone else.
That's true. He did have a super unique skill set.
Like, yeah, so it would be Ruruchi, definitely. Later that year, Illumitors was a very good hard rock player.
Yeah.
Who actually recently started to come back to OSU. And I'm hyped. I'm excited. I love him. I love to see him come back. So, Illumitors, definitely. Index, when he was rising up. HD Char, Young, like right now, definitely. Those were the type of stuff I looked up to. When Xerius was rising up, I was really looking up to for his aim. Really just like those were my main inspirations for back then. And really, I think you could really just boil it down to like the Lua and Ruruchi that like inspired my skill set now. Nowadays, man, I have a lot of names, but basically just like all the hard rock players in top 100, right? Like Umbre and Karthi and Itki, for example. Like Itki taught me, like, man, in 2016, I thought hard rock farming was dead. Like it was never coming back ever. And then just kind of Itki just like kind of shit on me and like proved everyone wrong and got ranked 1 like more than once. Playing hard rock only, and it like kind of motivated me again, like, oh, like maybe this is still doable. So yeah, I'm a huge Itki fan. Who else? A little lesser known names, Reedcat, Eternum, Riser, Varvalian. Varvalian's a bit more known, right? But yeah. Recently Rectigon, he's also pretty good. Kablaze. Like, a lot of all-rounder people with a hard rock-centric playstyle is what I look up the most to nowadays.
Right.
Hopefully that wasn't too confusing, but
no, it's good.
I try my best.
So that's pretty much my list of questions. I wrote down about your hyperfocus video. Do you have any other ideas of videos that you want to make in the near future?
Yeah, and I think from the past week, or rather, like my replacement video for this week would probably be this interview.
Because you want to upload it in full? I'm down. I
mean, no, I wouldn't upload it. I'd feel bad. Like if you're willing to put an archive, I'd be more than happy with that. But in regarding to other video ideas, yeah, I wanted to talk about the concept of weight when it comes to, hit sounds and cursors and skins and all that.
That does actually interest me a lot. Is there anything you could expand upon it?
Yeah. You remember that hit sounding thing I mentioned with you? So I want to bring that up, and I can use another example with cursors. Some cursors feel faster than others. And
True.
am I the only one who gets that feeling? Like, you know,
Yeah.
some cursors that you're not able to see very clearly, they feel faster to move. And cursors you're able to like recognize on your screen all of the time, they feel much heavier than they would otherwise. And I can't explain it because I'm no brain scientist, but I think it's because our eyes perceive light in a different way with these cursors. And the reason why I'm even bringing this up is because they have advantages and disadvantages, and I'd like to go over them. So that is one video idea. Another video idea is about different types of reading and advantages and disadvantages that they have.
I actually did want to bring this up as like a personal question. Can you talk to me about the different types of reading? Are you talking about like looking more at the hit circles versus your cursor, or is there something else?
Yeah, I can go over that. I think there's two main ones, really.
Okay.
One is looking note by note,
Yeah.
which is very good for precision, but it can tunnel vision you on really big patterns. Like full screen, fast jumps, you're probably not going to be able to look at it note by note, right? Like, do you think White Cat, like when he plays 300 BPM jumps, he looks at every note? That's probably not what he does, right?
Right.
But it's very helpful if you play hard rock, for example. If the BPM is low enough, you're probably able to look at every note. And it's really good for precision with your cursor. And then the second type would be peripheral reading, which is less looking at individual circles, more looking at the screen as a whole, and sort of using follow points as a way to know where to move. You see this a lot when you play DT a lot. And you play with, you know, skins that are good for DT, you're not really able to look at every note because, I mean, you can't. Like, I think even Badu said he doesn't look at every note when he plays DT. So it's not really a thing. I don't think it's possible.
Right.
So
I definitely am. I'm a huge culprit of like going way too hard to like single note reading to the point where like follow points do nothing for me because I just focus on every single note. And I think that's like pigeonholed me into a certain style or like type of maps.
I would say try them out. Like, for example, there are a lot of people who can't play without follow points. I would tell them, try to play without follow points for a while and try to see how your brain, how you look at circles, like, subconsciously. Like, playing without follow points kind of automatically forces you to look at note by note because you don't have any reference otherwise.
Right.
And it would be just the same thing for you, but with follow points. Like, suddenly you're not able to look at every note, so you can focus on peripheral, like looking at the whole screen and stuff like that, you know?
Is that true though? Because I think I use follow points for most of my like career, but realized that it didn't make a difference either way. Like, it doesn't really force you to use them; they just kind of happen to be there.
I wouldn't say force, more like I did say force, right? But like more gravitate than force.
Okay.
Like it's much easier to look at every note if you don't play with follow points than if you were playing with really big follow points. And it's much easier to look peripherally if you use really big, like, you know, those animated follow points that can tell you exactly where to go. Like, it's much easier to use peripheral reading when it comes to those and others. And one video idea was just going over the, you know, strengths and weaknesses of these types of readings. You know,
do you think that
just
people
like that.
can switch between the two, like based on their needs or mid map?
Yeah,
okay,
definitely.
Yeah, interesting.
even with snap or flow aim, you can choose to subconsciously snap or subconsciously flow. Like, people have more control than they think they have. And it's really just like these unmentioned ways to look at the game that I think would be good discussion ideas, because I know there's a lot of discussion videos nowadays, or like improvement guide videos.
Right.
But I'd like to focus on things that are like less commonly talked about.
Yeah, that's really fair. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm glad you do.
Does anyone in chat have specific questions? Like, I don't want to ask you how to get good at every single skill in the game, but if people have like specific things they want to ask and throw at Silver, then now is the time. Oh, the fitness question. Someone asked, like, do you maintain your fitness to avoid like injury or like help you potentially do more things in game, or is it like a separate thing?
Let's see. I think I got lucky in the sense that I never had any serious hand pain from the game, but I think the majority of people would not be as lucky as I am. So I don't do that, but I would recommend you do, because this game can wear your hands out too hard. Being sore is one thing, getting sharp pain is another. Like when you get sharp pains, just like stop immediately,
Yep.
and take a break, because that's a bad sign. Other than that, look up posture, make sure you're sitting correctly, make sure your chair height isn't too low or too high. Use armrests if you can. If you can't, then try to put your whole hand on the table. Just really anything that's comfortable that doesn't hurt you will be ideal. But yeah, to answer the question, I don't personally, but if you need to, then yeah, I would recommend.
Okay. Do you do like RSI stretches before playing?
RSI stretches before playing? I do stretches, like kind of my own take on stretches.
Okay.
But I haven't looked up specific stretches. So no. But if you feel like you need to, then yeah, I would look those up. I should probably do something about that too. Like, it would probably benefit me in a way, right?
Someone's asking favorite map of all time.
Favorite map of all time.
That's a tough one.
I had one. Man. That is hard. Because like I like so many maps nowadays. Favorite map of all time. Favorite map that I thought would have the most impact was probably one of Hollow Wings' maps. Either Sentimental Skyscraper or Genryu Kaiko.
Okay.
One of the two. I had a period of mapping, and I won't really go into it too much because it's not really relevant, but I like maps that make you think about the node placements. Like, why did they do this? Rather than maps that are very predictable and you're able to understand like why they placed nodes on every the way they did. Like stuff that makes you think is something I gravitate more towards. So I like the weird stuff, essentially. But it would be one of those two that I mentioned. Hollow Wings was a great inspiration for me.
What do you think about the current direction of the ranked section?
When it comes to maps, like not ranking leaderboards, right?
Correct. Or at least I assume so.
I think it's getting better. It was way worse in 2016, 2017. I am glad the whole featured artist thing is here because copyright has always been a huge issue for the game, right?
True.
And more good featured artists means more good innovation with maps and all stuff like that. Because I like maps that make you think, then the meta in 2016, 2017 was very like predictable mapping, which was something I kind of did. But at the moment, I think it's on an upward spike. Like it's getting better by year, and that's something really cool to see.
This is a very broad question, which I like a lot, which is how do you find like the motivation to keep doing one thing for a long period of time? Like to keep improving at a certain thing?
Do you mean like a certain skill set or just like play a thing?
Or I guess suppose either, but mostly a skill set.
I guess, yeah, that's hard. Yeah, because motivation has always been an issue for a lot of people, right? And sometimes you just gotta ask yourself, like, okay, why do I want to do this? You know, like when you remind yourself why you're doing these like boring things, then you kind of sort of reinvigorate yourself again to go at it again.
Yep.
And something that helped for me for motivation is don't look at results, like ever. Just set a quota for yourself to play a map or a skill set a couple of times a day, and just like don't look at the results. Just like play that from start to finish. Do that like twice a day, repeat daily. Eventually you'll notice gradual improvements. Like when people see that they're not getting good, they get discouraged. So if you just like don't set your goal to be better like daily. Just like have your goal be like play a map twice a day, and like that's it. When your goals become something that's more easy to obtain, motivation should come easier.
Yeah, I think that's great advice for like literally everything. First was like refocusing on your goals for the long term, remind yourself why you're doing it in the first place, and setting short-term goals that are achievable. And I suppose like not everyone works in that sort of goal-oriented mindset. For people like you and I, it's exactly how it's done.
Yeah, for sure. Some people like to not think about it too hard, and I mean, I know a lot. Like I talk to quite a few people, and a lot of people are just like, yeah, I just kind of brute force through everything. But that usually results in much lesser playtime from these people. Like when they're not feeling it, they're not motivated to try much, and the goal is to be consistent, and you increase your chances of being consistent by doing achievable goals and setting quotas rather than like, you know, trying to reach certain results, if that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
We've got 2 questions about making OS into a career. What are your thoughts on that?
I wouldn't go that route, personally. I know some people who do like that route. Man, I think nowadays, especially with Twitch, like copyright striking.
Oh God, yeah.
A lot of songs. It's getting harder than ever to make a career out of it.
Yep.
I'd say you're more likely being a variety streamer than like an OS only streamer. Gonna be honest.
Yep.
I've had there was a time period where I streamed, but I'm less of a fan of it. I kind of like to do my own thing personally. If you can do it, if you can sustain a living out of it, that's awesome. I personally would prefer to not go that route though.
Yeah, I think that trying to play a game with the intent of it being a career is like...
It's very limiting.
And it's also a huge risk, right?
Definitely.
It's like trying to quit your job to collect stamps for a living. You're gonna have a bad time unless you get really lucky.
Yeah. Especially nowadays, the market is so saturated, not even with OSU, with every game, that you either have to be the very best to garner any attention whatsoever,
right?
Or you need like 11 out of 10 personality to like even stand out nowadays. Like it's just getting increasingly harder to stand out in the crowd, man. And man, I don't want to discourage anyone. It's if that's your dream, then just like go at it and like do whatever you want to do, but
have a backup plan.
Yeah, definitely have a backup plan.
You're absolutely right. Like my time going through the OS directory and seeing these players that were really, really good in like the top 200 and like getting 2 viewers, like that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
There's a very small subset of people that can do it. People like Beast Troll who have that personality, or people like, you know, White Cat who is just like a god at the game.
Yeah.
That's about it.
There's no
between.
Essentially it's a are you good enough to to make up for your lack of personality, or is your personality good enough to make up for your lack of skill? Or the best aspect is, can you combine both of them? You know, it's essentially that game.
All right. Someone asked about translating OS to FPS skill. Any thoughts on that?
The funny part is I'm awful at FPS games.
Oh, that's your answer.
I'd say just play the game itself. Don't play other games that aren't that game. You know?
Yep.
Like, maybe there's a little bit of overlap, but it's so small that it's insignificant.
I agree.
Because you know how the League streamers played Osu because they thought it would improve their aim or whatever? And it's like, dude, you could probably just like play the game that you want to be good at.
But the 2D aim actually does make a little bit more sense. You know, for the League of Legends skill shot aim. I didn't think about that game.
But like, it's so insignificant that you're better off just playing that same game. Like, just play, if you want to get good at FPS, just play FPS games.
Yeah,
dude.
exactly. All right, any other questions from the chat here? What is your favorite flavor of ice cream?
Ooh. Favorite? Probably tiramisu. Tiramisu is pretty cool. I'm not actually... See, the thing about living in Israel is a lot of ice cream isn't, like, milky. And it's kind of gross. So I don't really get to eat a lot of ice cream unless I'm traveling. And last time I traveled was to Osu event. And then COVID happened, and now I'm stuck here. So I haven't really eaten ice cream in, like, a year. So, yeah.
Oh, man. All right, improving streaming skills.
Improving streaming, like, generally what to do?
Yeah.
Progressive overload. Play stream maps that you can play, but not something that you're comfortable with. Like, go slightly above your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
Start slow, and focus on getting good technique first, then getting good stamina. Because the goal is to have good fundamentals and technique, so the only thing you have to worry about is mechanics. That's the important part when it comes to learning streams, in my opinion, is focus on technique and then push yourself.
What exactly do you mean by technique? Do you mean like be able to do lower BPM streams, like a lot of control, you feel comfortable with like any BPM? Or do you mean like I am raising my fingers this much for each press of the key, or like this is how my arm is angled?
I would say, you know, coordination between your fingers. Like, there's this thing called galloping when streaming, which I really just learned about recently, where you kind of like play like doubles in a way.
Right.
Like, that's why it's called a gallop, and that wouldn't be an ideal technique. So if you start slow and you like consciously put your effort into, okay, raising one finger, lowering another, like slowly up, down, like consistent motion, and you start with that in mind, you're able to reinforce good fundamentals that can over time translate into faster and faster streams. Like I said, the goal is to have good coordination between your fingers, that the only thing you need to worry about is mechanical pushing, like increasing the BPM of stream gradually. That would be the best advice.
Do you think it's possible to have like really bad conceptions or like ideas about how you should stream? Like if you're putting a lot of force into each key press, do you think that's something that you should address, or something that will be ironed out with time?
It'll be ironed out with time, I think.
Okay.
Forcing to be light isn't ideal, I think. I think you should be conscious about trying to be light, but it'll come to you naturally the more comfortable you are with your technique.
Awesome. What does Zilver think of OS Trainer and Mick OS for improvement?
That is a good question, actually. Well, BPM change is something that needed to happen like 10 years ago,
True.
to be completely honest. But
Uh,
so OSU Trainer is a godsend, right? There were programs that did a very similar thing in the past, but FunOrange was able to create a really nice looking GUI for it, and it's really easy to use, and it's great. About it being used for improvement, I would say it's good, but don't let it be the only thing you do. It's good for, again, like mechanical pushing. Like, let's say a map is 140 BPM, and you speed it up to like 170 BPM, and you only play the 170 BPM. Suddenly, when you come back to that 140 BPM version, there's a chance you won't be able to play that because it's too slow, you know? Like, it's good on the side, but you should probably like focus on actual maps beforehand, is what I would say. It's a good tool, but don't let it be like your main way to like train mechanics, I guess.
Have you ever felt like you were addicted to OS at any point in time? Like, has your relationship been unhealthy? And if so, how did you solve that issue?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it was definitely around like 2014, 2015, like when I had the most issue. And I just solved that by, man, I don't even know. It's really just other responsibilities sort of forced me to spend less time on the game. So the times I've had school or work, I just needed to, you know, not think about the game, right? And do those stuff instead. It's important to remind yourself that being like addicted and spending so much time in a game is like, even if your goal is to improve, it's not going to make you better. Like, you need to rest to improve more quickly. Like, if that gives you more motivation to spend less time on the game, then you can always go that route, you know?
Okay.
But yeah, there were definitely periods, and those were during the first 2 years, but I've been able to... It's gone much better, like, in recent years, yeah.
What are your goals nowadays in OS, now that you've been playing for so long?
Man, game is still fun, so
I think
still have fun, I guess.
You're probably one of the few players that still says that, like the top, after playing as much as you have.
Really?
I feel like most people at the top, like 100 or so, are playing it, but like, I want to be the best. And like, they don't have like that moment-to-moment enjoyment anymore.
I understand that. But man, it's just like, I don't... Maybe I'm the weird one, yeah? Like, who knows, right? But it's just like, I still like music. I still like, you know, moving my hand and stuff, you know?
Yeah.
I haven't really played for ranked for like years now, so it's really just like, hey, can I like come back from like a long day at work and just like listen to a song I like and do good on it, you know? It's really just that. You said goals, right? And it's kind of weird because like I've been like rambling on and on this interview about like improvement skills or whatnot. But man, like, it's not fun to just like improve and not have fun while doing it. So it's really just like to keep improving and to keep having fun is like still my only two goals. And if I get bored of the game, then I'll just stop playing, you know?
All right. Very, very healthy relationship compared to most, I think.
I mean, it's understandable, right? And I think I'm actually a really good example of maybe not an unhealthy relationship, but just like a head to the wall mentality that a lot of people have. Don't take the game emotionally. Like, take it seriously, but like it's not something to do with you being bad or whatever. It's just, you know, do other stuff, right? Like, even like spending so much time isn't even like helping you achieve what you want anyway. Yeah. I feel like
my
I'm
God.
repeating myself. Sorry.
No, that's all good. Forrest is asking, did Silver fix his issues with aim?
Man, I remember we talked about it. Also, hi Forrest. I didn't know you were here. Regarding that, so I think I talked about it earlier in the conversation where I would try to force being light on my aim and it not working out.
Right.
So I'm trying to go the route of gradually reducing the amount of strain that it requires me to move from node to node. You know what I mean? Because what me and Forrest talked about, we talked about like using strain between pen movements and stuff. Like if you aim, like if you tense up while moving, then you're probably gonna overshoot stuff, and you need to be really light with your aim. So I always came up with it. So the answer would be like, I'm working on it. It's a gradual process of like, you know, gradually being lighter and lighter with my technique is the goal.
He says he believes in you. Heck yeah. Someone keeps
appreciate
asking
that.
what your waifu is.
Man, I haven't watched anime in like 4 years now, dude.
I had a feeling.
I'm not the type of person to ask. Man, it's weird, right? Like I spent so much time on this game that I like is so related to anime, and I don't even watch anything. I'm sorry. Like I haven't really watched anything since 2016.
Do not apologize about not having a waifu. That's how it should be.
Yeah.
All right. Any final questions? All good CS players watch anime. I don't feel like that's true.
All good CS players. I mean, there's probably a correlation between like interests, but I don't think it's because they're good. I think it's just because they're into CS, likely. I don't know. Like I know a lot of League players used to watch anime as well, you know?
How do you feel about the O's community at large? Do you still interact with them at all?
Much less than what I used to.
I thought so.
I think it's not really an OSU community issue. It's a gaming community issue in general, where people are getting more toxic to each other.
Yeah.
And it's due to the presence of too much social media. So, again, I'm trying to stray away from it, from the main majority side of it. But there are still like niche small groups that I interact with that are still like the sort of magic in gaming communities, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Like it would be like try to get less involved in the majority and try to find your inner niche between that big community is where you'll have the most interaction and fun with other people.
Did you like deactivate your Twitter at some point?
Yeah, I did.
So that was an effort to get away from social media?
It was an effort, yeah. That site was not good for my brain, so
Yeah.
I just deleted it.
It's truly terrible. I respect it.
It was like man, like the time I've had the most fun, like playing games, not even OSA, just like playing games, was like the time where I've had like no social media accounts like ever.
Wow.
And since I'm not a content creator, I don't need to have them anyway.
Yeah.
So it's literally a win-win.
All right. For those of you who, or for people in chat who want to keep up with your content, because you're going to make more discussion videos in the future, or just like see how insane you are at the game, where can they find you?
So I have a YouTube channel link. Do you want me to give you the link?
I can look it up. Is there any other social media you have?
I really just have a YouTube and like a Discord. I have a Twitch, but I don't use it, to be honest. But I might like streaming again. I've been incredibly inconsistent, but I will try my best. But yeah, it's really it's mainly just my YouTube channel, which I can link you. One sec.
Someone dropped it in chat already. Can you explain the name
okay.
Dark Beast Ganon 2?
I knew this was coming, and I was terrified
Oh man, that's good.
for the moment it would come. So
It's
I was
okay,
I
mine
was
is
into
worse. I'll be honest.
Yeah, I was into Zelda, right? Obviously,
Yeah.
and I played. So the original account name was like Dark Beast Ganon, and that didn't work. So, like, I don't know, something happened while making this account, so I just added a 2 at the end, and that worked. So that was kind of how it began.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
I mean, at least yours came from Zelda. Mine came from like Call of Duty, so that's way worse.
I mean, I don't know, man. Some people like Call of Duty. I had a Call of Duty phase, actually.
Yeah, but it was like the MLG like XX nade shot optic, you know, that kind of shit. It's terrible. Yours is great by comparison.
I don't know. Like, if you mean the montage parodies, there was a time where they were genuinely hilarious. But the actual montages too, I remember being around for them as well. Yeah, those are cool.
All
I
right.
wouldn't devalue your name, actually.
All right, I guess that's all we have to say here. I had a great time. I was looking forward to this in a huge way. Like as soon as you got back to me, I'm like, oh man, I can barely sleep at the thought.
Man, I was like heart rate 200 before joining the interview. I'm glad I wasn't the only one. Like, man, I really do appreciate the opportunity, and really just thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure.
And
man.
I really hope your channel goes far, because you have a very unique style of content, actually.
Thank you. All right. Any last words you wanna say to the chat?
Man, that's hard.
No, you can just say no. That's it. No
I
one,
don't know. Like,
no one, anyone has closing words, but I figure I might as well ask anyway.
Man, I really got nothing. Just thanks for chilling.
All right.
Really hope to see.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah.
All right. I'll see you around.
I appreciate the talk. Bye, man.
See you.